Hi, fifth graders. We're here again for chapter 32 of One Crazy Summer, but let's first recap chapter 31. Here's what we know so far that happened last chapter. After the sisters recited their poem and Fern outed Crazy Kelvin, it was revealed that Cecile had been freed from jail and she had listened to them and she gave them some compliments, which kind of indicated that she at least was a little bit proud of her daughters. Another thing that happened in the last chapter was that Eunice, Hirohito, and Delphine were hanging out together at the park after the rally, and there was in the scene it was revealed that Hirohito likes Delphine, and she also admits it very timidly. But so they both said so, indicating that yeah, it's okay. We do like each other, kind of. And the other thing that was revealed in the last chapter was the sisters are returning to New York City the next day. So that's going to leave, they're going to be leaving Cecile and they're going to be going back with Pa and Big Ma. So it's a big change here as we culminate these last two chapters. All right, so let's dive right in. Chapter 32. Our teaching point, as always, is that we always want to make sure that we're paying attention to the character traits, relationships that they have, especially at this point in the story, any changes, because we're tying up all the loose ends with these characters here. We're also going to keep an eye out for any themes that are coming across here as we finish the text. All right, chapter 32, B11. We told Cecile everything about our excursion to San Francisco, the hippies, Chinatown. Vanetta told how the tall, blonde, white people took pictures of her like she was a movie star, which I could see Cecile didn't like one bit. Fern told how she saw Crazy Kelvin with two policemen just before the bus rounded into the Bay Bridge. She gave us an earful about how Kelvin always said racist pigs, but he let the policeman pat him on the back like he was the policeman's dog. To that, Cecile said, "If you can see that, then you'll write poems, all right." We asked her about being arrested and being a political prisoner and a freedom fighter. Cecile made it sound like it was no big deal. I've been fighting for freedom all my life, but she wasn't talking about protest signs, standing up to the man, and knowing your rights. She was talking about her life, just her, not the people. Vanetta, wanting more compliments, said, "We put everything back just the way you like it," talking about Cecile's workplace, the kitchen. I didn't expect gushing, but it would have been nice if she gave us more than a nod. So here, let's pause a second. That phrase or that sentence where she said, "I didn't expect gushing, but it would have been nice if she gave us more than a nod." This reveals a little bit about Cecile and Delphine's relationship. Is Cecile maybe upset with Delphine, perhaps? She didn't get a compliment yet. And this nice thing that the girls did by fixing up the kitchen just so a couple chapters back when after the police had destroyed it, she doesn't seem to be thankful for this. This maybe could indicate that she's in some way not happy with Delphine still. Let's read on to see what happens. We packed all of our things except for the clothes that we'd wear in the morning. It was hard to believe that 4 weeks had passed so quickly. When Vanetta and Fern had gone to bed, I went to the kitchen to find Cecile hunched over her printer. Pieces of the machine lay out on the table. She had the screwdriver in her hand, putting it back together herself. Although I didn't hear the door swing when I pushed it, she had, and she knew I was there. "I called your father when I got out," she told me without looking up. "Delphine, why didn't you tell him what happened?" I stood there, surprised, shocked. It didn't enter my mind that she would have wanted me to call Papa. "We thought you were coming right back." She kept screwing in one of the rollers, still not looking at me directly. "I counted on you to call him, tell him what happened. I at least thought you'd figure that out. You're the oldest, Delphine, the smart one." She had just told me that I was smart and a disappointment, reminding me that she still hadn't said one nice thing to me. Not one. Papa would have made us come back to Brooklyn. He would have been mad because I didn't do what he had said, look after Vanetta and Fern. And then Big Ma wouldn't let a day pass without telling me for the rest of my life how you aren't nothing but... Delphine, you let 7 days pass without calling your father. 7 days. That would have been looking out for Vanetta and Afua. You shouldn't have taken this all on yourself. You didn't have to do nothing with police. You didn't have nothing to do with the police arresting me. I didn't have nothing to do with you police arresting me either. They came. They arrested me along with the two Panthers that they really wanted. And Lewis's mother is going to say whatever she's going to say. That's just how it is. All you had to do was call your father. That was all. Geez, my eyes stung. I was spilling over mad. I couldn't stop what I had to say, even if she stood over me and became my crazy Mother Mountain and knocked me down. I was spilling over. Wow. So here, Delphine thought she was going to get some kind of compliment for, the job that she did at the rally. And here she gets basically like yelled at by her mother for not realizing that she was supposed to like call her father. This is a crazy moment here. Let's see what Delphine's reaction is. I was spilling over, she says. I'm 11 years old and I do everything. I have to because you're not there to do it. I'm only 11 years old, but I do the best I can. I don't just up and leave. Oof, this seems to be a turning point for Delphine here. When she says she's spilling over mad and cannot hold it in any longer, this is like a climactic moment between the mother-daughter relationship. As a reader right here, I'm hoping that Cecile can maybe find it in her to have some kindness or some love that she shows to Delphine in this moment. So she just shouted at her mother, I don't just up and leave. Let's read on to see what her mother says back. I was still on 2 feet. There was no sting on my jaw. My backside had not been touched. So she thought she was going to get hit. But I was ready for it. I closed my eyes because I figured the slap wouldn't sting as much when it did come. Instead, I heard metal on metal. I opened my eyes, and the sound I heard was the screwdriver missing the groove, hitting the printer's metal innards. She laid the screwdriver on the table. I had nowhere to go, but I wanted to disappear. Finally, she nodded to the floor and said, sit. I did what she told me. There was a lot of silence, but then she spoke. It was just me and my mother till I was 11. I wasn't used to having her attention, having her look at me and talk. All the while she spoke, she didn't lift her eyes from me. A car hit her and she was gone. That was it. Wow, we're learning something here about Cecile's background. Like we didn't know that yet. My aunt took me in to clean her house, watch her kids. I slept on a blanket on the floor in the kids' room for 5 years. I was 16 when she announced that she was getting married. She said it wasn't good for a big gal like me to be in her house, seeing as she had a husband. She said in the long run she was doing me a favor. Then my mother's sister made me a sandwich I couldn't eat, gave me $20 and put me out. Wow, that's pretty harsh, isn't it? I slept in subways at night. During the daytime, I read Homer and Langston Hughes in libraries. I tried to hide in the stacks, but they always found me and shooed me out. When I didn't have 15 cents for the subway, I slept on park benches, wherever I could hide myself. Delphine, it's a hard thing to sleep on the streets, a hard thing for a grown man. And it's a harder thing for a teenage girl, no matter how big and tall she is. At night, I talked to myself to stay awake. I would say the poems of Homer and Langston Hughes. I liked the words. They comforted me. Their rhymes, their beats, they made a place for me. They kept me strong. But I was always hungry and I had gotten sick. Your father found me on a park bench. He and his brother had a nice apartment on Herkimer Street. He fed me. He gave me a bed to sleep on. I hadn't slept on a bed since I was 11 years old and my mother was alive. Wow, we're really learning a lot here about how, Cecile had a tricky and difficult life up until the moment that she met Delphine's dad, whose name is Louis. Louis never bothered me. He didn't ask me much to do about cooking, sweeping, washing his clothes. She paused. I had you the next year, 6 years from where you are now. I had Vanetta next. Both times his mother came up from Alabama and delivered you and Vanetta in that apartment. She and I couldn't get along, so she always went back south. Then I had the last one. That little one wanted to come out bad enough to come when she wanted to come, early and fast. She was born on a Friday. All I could do was lie on the kitchen floor and let her come. She stopped for a moment and said, you were there when she came. I was? And before we go on, I just wanted to share with you, I did some research here about so we know that the chapter is called Afua, or we've heard her, chapter 33 is called Afua, but we've heard Delphine's mom refer to Fern as Afua just in this chapter here. So this is what I found out. Afua is a name commonly given to girls born on Fridays in the African country of Ghana. So Cecile is saying that Fern was born on a Friday, and that might be why she wanted to call her this name here, Afua. We know from earlier in the story that there was a big fight over naming Fern, whether she should be called this name that Cecile wanted or the name that she wound up getting, Fern. And that was essentially, we were told why she left. So this is a really important piece of, historical information we're learning here. So anyway, she goes back to tell the story of Fern's birth. You were there when she came. I was? I was down on the floor. You stroked my hair like I was a doll, but you didn't have any dolls, no toys. You said, "Don't cry, Mama, don't cry." I think that's the first time I heard you really speak. But when she came out of me, you didn't say a word. You took the dish towel hanging off the icebox handle and you wiped off your sister. I could hardly breathe. Then Darnell walked in from school, and he did everything else that needed to be done. Why couldn't I remember seeing Fern being born, telling my mother not to cry, wiping Fern off with the dish towel? Where were these flashes of my memory? Your life seems hard, Delphine, but it is good. It's better than what I could have given you. Here was my mother telling me her life, who she was, how she came to be Cecile, answering questions that I'd stored in my head from the time I realized she would not come back. Here she was telling me more than I could remember, understand, or picture. Maybe I was too old to really take hold of it all, but from what it seemed like the first time ever, all I could think about was my own self, what I lost, what I missed. That no one said, "Good, Delphine." No one ever said thank you. Even after her telling me all of this, I was still mad. Maybe I had been mad all along, but I didn't have time to just be it. Mad. Is it true what Big Ma says? That you left because you couldn't name Fern? Here we go. Let's hear the story of this. I took her silence as a yes. For a while, she said nothing, so I guess she was done talking. I started to get up. Then she said, "I couldn't have taken you with me and left the other two. You had my mother's face. You didn't cry. You didn't want much. I could have taken you with me. You didn't talk, but you understood. But I didn't have a penny in my pocket. I just knew I had to go. So I gave Vanetta a cookie. That was all she wanted anyway. I gave the baby milk, and the picture flashed before me as it had many, many times. I put the baby doll in with Athua, the doll I asked Darnell to go to the store and get. I told you to be good and wait for Papa, and then I left." Wow, we just learned a lot there. That Miss Patty, the doll that was given to Fern, was actually given. Well, Darnell went out to go get it, but it was from Cecile on the day that she left. So important there. She told me everything I wanted to know and too much. It was too much. I'd have to take it out one piece at a time to look at it. She said, "Did I leave because of a name? You'd have to be grown first before I explained. If I told you now, it would just be words." So she picked up her screwdriver and went back to working on her printer. Be 11, Delphine. Be 11 while you can. That was it. In the middle of the night, I woke up. Afua? This was what Delphine thought in the middle of the night. Let's just kind of think here about the theme or the lesson. In this scene, we are learning lots of details about Cecile's history and her departure, the circumstances that led up to it, how her life had been hard, and why she maybe left her daughters behind. It's almost as if maybe there is a reason for everything. Maybe forgiveness here can be found. Maybe Delphine can find it eventually in her heart to maybe at least understand a little bit why her mother maybe had to leave. But here it's really important that her mom says to her this message of be 11. You know, she doesn't want Delphine to always be the mother figure. She wants her daughter to at least be able to live in the moment and be, have her feelings and be herself, not to just have to worry always about being the mother to her sisters. And that in itself is a nice lesson that her mother is trying to teach her here. All right, so boys and girls, let's take a look at what we can just summarize for this chapter, B11. Who was in this chapter and what new things did we learn about them? So, well, this chapter was really mostly just Cecile and Delphine, and we learned a lot about Cecile here. We learned all the circumstances that led up to her, being found by Louis or Pa, and we learned a little bit about the moment or the night when she had Fern/Afua and why she maybe left. So those were a lot of new things that we were learning, and we were also learning that in this scene, Delphine finally takes a stand and shouts back at her mother, "You left. I have to always be the mother here." So what seems important? What are we learning about the problem? We learned a lot about Delphine's feelings here and how she finally let them spill over and voice what she feels. And we also learned that maybe the mother, Cecile's relationship with Delphine isn't going to be so horrible in the end. Cecile does really say at the end there, B11, showing that she wants to be the motherly figure and she wants Delphine to be the daughter, not always the mother. How does this chapter connect to what we read earlier? So it definitely has a couple different places that connect where we learn about Cecile's history. We've heard Big Ma talking about Cecile's history before, so those chapters connect. The part about Miss Patty, the doll, connects to this. We finally learned the moment, or some the details about the moment where she was bought. And we also learned a ton about this name. We've been hearing about this name the whole text, about how Fern is never called by her name by Cecile, always just little girl. And so here we learned the history as to like what's behind the scenes of what was she named by Cecile, and what was the meaning of it. So definitely a lot of loose ends tied up here, connections to lots of other different chapters. Okay, and our last question. How does Delphine demonstrate that she's changed in this scene? Use 2 details from the text to support your response. How does Delphine have a turning point and demonstrate that she's changed? All right, boys and girls, we'll see you again for the very last chapter, chapter 11, coming right up.